Hello, humans and dogs who are in earshot. Annie Grossman here. As you learned in our last episode, I have a new co host. Anamarie Johnson is her name. For reasons I will get to in a minute, she and I have decided to record this episode in two parts. And boy, oh boy, do I have a lot to say. So my part is first. Something really crazy happened, which actually relates to what we talked about in the last episode about how professional dog trainers are all mad at each other. Like there's like all these crazy feuds going on. I certainly did not anticipate that the drama would hit so close to home so soon. In the weeks since our last episode, Anamarie has I don't know what you say. Anamarie has been canceled, has had her name dragged through the mud, has been the victim of hate from many people on the internet, many of them behaving in a way that I would call troll-ish. Now, if you had asked me 3 weeks ago to guess which one of us would face a kind of public shaming before the end of the month, I would have said probably me. I tend to speak my mind. I just put out a book that has some 80,000 words in it that probably could be taken out of context. And in this day and age, I think when you put yourself out there, you can't help but feel worried that you are inadvertently going to offend someone and suffer their wrath, whether or not you deserve it. My point is, I feel like if someone was going to come after one of us, it would be me. Whereas Anamarie, like if we were both paintings, Anamarie would be like a paint by number painting where everything had its exact spot and its perfect color and was very neat and tidy, and all the paint was like in little jars. And I would be like the Jackson Pollock. Like that's the difference between us. But she ended up coming under fire along with her advisor at ASU, Clive Wynne, for an article that was published in the journal Animals called Comparison of the Efficacy and Welfare of Different Training Methods in Stopping Chasing Behavior in Dogs. And rather than trying to explain the study, I'm just going to read the summary and the abstract here. The use of electric shock collars, or e-collars, is one of the most controversial topics in dog training. In this study, we compared e-collars to methods relying entirely on food rewards in order to stop dogs running after a lure. We found that dogs receiving shocks from e-collars stopped chasing a lure within 2 sessions of 10 minutes of lure running per session. These dogs also refrained from chasing the lure in 3 out of 4 test sessions. 2 groups of dogs trained with food reward did not refrain from chasing the lure across 5 training sessions and failed all 4 test sessions. Aside from presumably pain-induced yelps in the dogs with e-collars when they received shocks, none of the dogs in any groups showed any signs of stress or de-stress. E-collars may be an appropriate tool in the hands of expert trainers training behaviors that have important welfare impact, such as running after cars or other animals. Future studies should investigate the levels of expertise needed to use e-collars effectively, the kinds of behavioral problems for which they are best suited, and the longer-term implications of their use. And this is the abstract. Controversy surrounds the efficacy and welfare implications of different forms of dog training, with several studies asserting that electronic shock collars have negative welfare impacts while not being more effective than non-aversive methods. However, these studies did not specify the schedule and intensity of punishment used or the effectiveness of the training method. In the current study, we attempted to train dogs across 6 sessions to desist from chasing a fast-moving lure in one of 3 randomly assigned conditions, and then tested for retention and generalization in 4 further test trials. Group A was trained with e-collars. Group B was trained with non-aversive methods and the lure moving as with Group A. And Group C was trained as for Group B, but with the lure initially moving slowly before its speed was progressively increased. All dogs in Group A stopped running towards the lure after 1 or 2 sessions, and none chased the lure in the first 3 tests. 67% of these dogs chased the lure in the final test in a novel arena. None of the dogs in the group B or C successfully refrained from chasing the moving lure in training or any test. I'll be honest, this stuff makes my brain hurt. I just don't have training as a researcher, and I don't feel like I'm really good at critically evaluating studies. But I do think I'm pretty good at seeing sort of the big picture. So let me give you the big picture translation here is that they used electric collars to shock dogs when they were chasing something, and they also tried to stop the chasing with food rewards, and the shock collars worked better, which I don't think is surprising. I don't really understand the argument that we shouldn't use shock collars because they don't work. Of course they work, but they also cause collateral damage. By definition, if a behavior is punished, the behavior should not keep happening. And it doesn't surprise me that these shock collars are punishing to the dogs. This is one of the criticisms that this paper has gotten. It has also gotten a huge number of other criticisms, which I don't want to take on. Mostly because I love Anamarie. But beyond loving Anamarie, I trust Anamarie as a researcher, and I certainly trust Clive Wynne, who also he's one of the top behavior scientists in the world. The study was approved by Arizona State University's Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, which answers to the National Institute of Health. Every research university working with animals has to have an AICUC, which reviews research protocols and conducts evaluations of the institution's animal care and use, and it's made up of veterinarians and researchers and members of the community, and they review every study when it's proposed, if there are animals involved. Then it was peer reviewed and published in a highly respected journal. So I'm not saying that this was the most trustworthy study in the world, but those are some indicators to me that it was, at least, conducted properly. So for those reasons alone, I trust that it was done in a way that adhered to whatever ethics there are in the world of research of that kind. The criticism that I understand the most is from trainers who have said this study shouldn't have been done at all because wouldn't one assume that punishment of this kind would work? And all this has done is throw kindling on the fire for trainers who use these tools to be able to say, this study proves that shock collars work better than treats. Of course, the study doesn't prove anything that broad. It proves that the collars worked with those dogs in that situation. It doesn't prove that you can't stop chasing with reward-based training. Of course you can, but it's going to take longer, and the study wasn't that long. A lot of professionals in the industry have had a lot to say about this issue, to the point where at his speech at APDT last week, Ken Ramirez, the chief training officer of Karen Pryor Clicker Training and former podcast guest, talked about it and gave some suggestions on how we can live in a world that is possibly too connected, where everyone's opinion can somehow carry equal weight, and we can all get lost in the dopamine hits of commenting in a way that is not necessarily productive. And he gave the advice that before entering the conversation, think carefully about what you have to add to the discussion, with, I think, the implication being, if you don't have anything to add to the discussion, maybe don't enter the fray. And I've been thinking really hard about this over the last couple of days, because I don't think what I have to add to the discussion is leave my friend alone because I love her. I don't think what I have to add to the discussion is we shouldn't use shock collars for reasons having to do with ethics, not with efficacy, or that any trainer who is using this study to quote unquote prove their methods work are worth the time of day. But here's something that I haven't heard people say about this study, which is that the reason it shouldn't have been done is that these collars should be illegal. The fact is, not only are these collars legal, but they are completely unregulated and available to anyone. You could literally send your kid to the store with their allowance and they could buy one of these things. And there's no regulation of the voltage. People who promote these collars refer to them as feeling kind of like a tens unit. But the truth is we have no way of knowing that, because unless you want to get a voltage meter and measure the output yourself, you have no way of knowing how much voltage is going into your dog. And even if you try it on yourself, you have no way of knowing that your nerves are experiencing it in the same way your dog is. You also have the benefit of knowing that the shock is going to come. Anyway, that's the problem with this study. Given that these things are out there, are readily available for sale, and are sold in stores and being recommended for use by so-called professionals, and I think maybe there should be more research on them. But frankly, before that happens, I would hope that they would become illegal. I sometimes think that dog training truly is an anti-progressive field, but maybe it's American dog training, because shock collars have been banned in other parts of the world for a long time. They're banned in Quebec, Switzerland, Slovenia, Portugal, Finland, the Netherlands, Austria, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Wales, and Scotland. And earlier this year, they were banned in England. France is in the process of implementing a legal ban. They're regulated in Australia and New Zealand. But here in the US, anybody can get their hands on one of these things. And in the show notes, I am going to put a video that I did several years ago. That's just a compilation of kids on YouTube wearing shock collars. Why? Because kids are idiots and are going to put on the shock collars in their parents' houses. I did this when I was a kid. I bet you know someone who did this when they were a kid. And that's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that we have these painful devices in our homes that our kids can access. And in some of these videos, it's the parents who are putting it on their kids as like a laugh, which makes me think, of course, if this is happening for a laugh on YouTube, it's happening in situations that aren't so funny too. If you don't believe me, all you need to do is go to Google News and put in shock collars and kids, and you will see story after story. When Ken suggested we think about what we can add to the conversation, I also thought there was something that I could do that probably not a whole lot of other people who are passionate about this are going to do, which is to find out what happens when you actually try and buy one of these things. So I reached out to a few different stores and just asked questions as if I was trying to deal with my dog's problems. The reason I reached out to stores and not to trainers is because, as Anamarie's previous research has showed, most people don't go to trainers. They're getting information from whatever comes in the box, from the person they're buying the device from, and from the internet. You'll hear me ask some questions about voltage during these calls. After I did these calls, I went down kind of a rabbit hole trying to find out what kind of output these devices actually have. I learned that they're measured in milliamps, not voltage, but I also learned that there really is very little information out there. The manufacturers don't make this stuff public. As I mentioned, you would have to have a voltmeter in order to figure it out yourself. A lot of people compare the sensation to using a TENS unit, one of those things that has the little pads that you put on one of your muscles when they're sore. And I found that they usually have a maximum output of something like 80 milliamps. Some people, though, apparently only have a pain tolerance to be able to take one of these units going up to like 0.5 milliamps. Shock collars, on the other hand, may go up to 80 milliamps, but I also saw information online estimating that they could go up to 400 milliamps. And again, they are completely unregulated, and as you will see, the people who are selling them themselves don't know. To put this in perspective, a cattle prod outputs like 10 milliamps, and 6 to 30 milliamps is what OSHA has found causes people pain and produces involuntary reactions. I called one local store that is a big box chain store. I called one large online retailer and then 2 smaller online retailers. I have taken out the details about each retailer because I did not disclose that I was doing this in the name of journalism. I tried to ask questions that I thought your average person might ask. I picked places based on what came up on the first page of Google. I'm not going to comment on these conversations because I think they pretty much speak for themselves, and they certainly helped underscore my feeling that we need more information about these tools if they are going to be recommended for use by professionals, let alone for use laymen. I think doing studies of aversive tools is unfortunately necessary if they are going to be legal and recommended. I oppose their use for ethical reasons, and I'm sure a lot of researchers do as well, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't be looking at the science. In my book, I talk about the work of psychologist Martin Seligman in the 1960s. He did studies where he found that dogs who suffered shocks that they could not escape ended up basically depressed. He called it learned helplessness, the kind of shutdown that happens when you can't make any choices to get yourself out of a bad situation. And it led him ultimately to try and cure depression in people. He's the founder of the School of Positive Psychology. I don't think we necessarily need studies that are indicating whether or not they work. To me, efficacy in the short term is not surprising. But I think fear these studies because we fear what will happen if science shows that these tools stop behavior might also quash studies that could give real meaningful information to people about how these tools work, how operant conditioning works, and how we can be better dog owners overall. Well, hi. I was looking at buying a collar and I was just looking for some more information.
Definitely. Are you interested in learning about any specific systems or?
Well, my dog, she jumps like when people come in. So, like, what would you suggest for that?
Okay. So, our most popular system is the ET300. It has a waterproof remote and collar receiver. The remote will even float in water. It comes in a variety of colors. And then it does have half-mile range. So the dog can be half a mile away from you and still get that stimulation.
What exactly does it do? How does it work?
So it is, instead of like a shock, it is a stimulation collar. It's got 100 levels of that stimulation, either a momentary, which is just a really quick stimulation, or you can use continuous up to 10 seconds.
It's a stimulation that means it doesn't like hurt them.
It's similar to like a TENS unit. So it pulls their muscle instead of delivering like an erratic shock.
So it's not really like punishment.
Exactly. And so we do suggest um, finding like a trainer on our website. If you go under the About tab, you can click on trainers near you.
Okay. Are there any like certain qualifications I should look for?
Yep, we've all vetted them. The system itself, it does come with an owner's guide to
Okay.
get you started. And then if you look on YouTube, I'm going to be honest, hundreds of training videos that you can follow as well.
Will it also stop like the barking?
If it's barking when you're there, you can use that. You can use that system to help
What,
with
and then
that
just like
barking.
stimulate her every time she barks?
You would probably want to mark the behavior.
Okay. So like tell her no and then do it?
That's what most people will like. Instead of using the word no, um, they will like use the place command. So instead of like her barking at the window or jumping at people, they will like use the place command so that she will or the dog will come back to you and sit in place.
And then I stimulate it?
Yeah, yeah. So when you would give the place command, you would use that stimulation almost like a tap on the shoulder. You would use your command along with that stimulation, and then you would train the dog so the dog knows what behavior they're supposed to do.
Like what does it feel like? Is it a certain amount of voltage?
There's 100 levels. I don't have like the voltage, but it feels like pins and needles, almost just like almost like a tap at lower levels.
So how do you figure it out? You just like test it on yourself till it hurts?
Well, even at like a level 5, it doesn't really hurt. It's just your muscle contracts. Um, but you would start at the lower level on your dog, like a 1 or a 2, and keep on going up until your dog lets you know that they can feel that. And a lot of times they'll look at you, they'll scratch at the collar. Um, Sometimes they get up because you're going to want to do it when they're calm so that you do know the lowest level they feel that at.
So I start out with her just calm. Okay. So what if it's too high? What does that mean it feels like?
So the higher the level, the stronger the pull. And so it's going to contract that muscle pretty hard. It just pulls the muscle, just like a TENS unit. Like if you've ever been to a chiropractor, it just sends stimulation to pull the muscle. It's just like pins and needles.
My daughter's really interested in training. Can I
Yeah,
use this with her?
yeah, definitely. I know, like when we were training, like my daughter was 8 at the time, and she was helping us train.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'll take a look on your site.
Thank you for calling. For remote traders or bark control collars, please press 1. Mike.
Well, hi. I'm trying to figure out if one of these collars might be right for me and my dog.
Okay. What breed of dog do you have?
Like a Chihuahua pit bull mutt type of dog. It's like 30 pounds.
And what were you looking to do as far as training?
She jumps, she barks. She could just be kind of annoying.
Got it. So you want the 280X,
Oh.
the model that's ideal for you. It's just released in August. It's enough power for your dog.
Like what does the collar do?
So when I say power, it's associated to the stimulation, right? So it all depends on how you want to train your dog. It'll give you enough power for stimulation if you need it. Your dog is a 30-pound dog. This 80X unit, it's good for dogs as small as 10 pounds.
I
In
don't really
fact,
understand how it works.
it's static energy. So it's powered by a battery, and the contact points release a static energy. It's not a shock. Static energy. More or less a massage. Kind of like, hey, you know, and obviously you can turn up the stimulation, you can turn up the level. It can be a more significant sensation or static energy.
So
And
it's
then
like a massage.
it's not shocking the dog. Shocking is a completely different thing altogether. This is not shocking.
So this is different than the collars that do shock a dog?
Well, I don't know what other companies sell as far as collars, e-collars go, but we don't sell shock collars. We sell collars that provide stimulation. What the collar does, it gives you, it kind of reinforces your voice or your command. Does that make sense? First and foremost, you have to train your dog with command before you actually apply the e-collar system. If you apply the e-collar system without training your dog, you may scare your dog, and it's not going to like having a collar on because you're providing stimulation without any verbal commands or
So before
need
you
to
train your
be able to
dog,
train.
before you train your dog with the collar, you have to train your dog.
You have to train your dog with your command
So
before applying the collar.
I have a little kid. What happens if my little kid picks it up? It's not going to like hurt her. As
And
long as
that's and that's something that you're gonna have to kind of
Mhm.
figure out, because you have a baby, you said. Obviously, you don't want to be stimulating the collar when your baby is holding onto the dog or holding onto the collar while she's standing next to the dog or something. That's something that you're going to have to figure out.
But I mean, it wouldn't even really hurt anyway, I guess, because you said it was just like it's just like a massage.
Well, it depends on the levels, right? So there's different levels. There's with all of our systems, there's different levels of stimulation,
But how
and
do
you
you
can
figure
adjust
out?
the level.
How do I figure out which level is right?
That's something that you would have to figure out on your own. So the 280X versus the 1900 series, it's a medium to high power output. And so because your dog is about 30 pounds and the temperament what breed is your dog again?
It's like a Chihuahua pit.
Chihuahua pit. So she has a little pit in her, pits tend to be a little more um, persistent, a little more um, uh, adamant about getting what they want or whatever they're more high energy than a Chihuahua, right? But it sounds like your dog's a little bit of both. It all depends on the temperament of the dog. If the temperament of the dog is very high energy, you may want to go with a high power system, which is the 1900 series, because he has a little pit in her. And
Yeah.
because your dog is mixed, that's something that you would have to kind of read into and kind of look at your dog to see what temperament she is because she's a mix.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'll
Of
think
course,
I'll
if you have any other questions, just give us a call.
Also, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for calling your neighborhood store. For customer service, remain on the line for assistance. Wait while I transfer your call.
586, how may I help you?
I was looking at your electronic collars, and I just had some questions about them.
The problem is that we don't sell them here.
Oh, you have them on the website.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The thing is that we don't recommend collars anyway like that.
They're on the website.
We still sell them in online, but in store we don't recommend it. That's why we stopped selling them in store. It's a negative enforcement. That's why.
Okay.
And here we recommend positive training.
But I can get it on the website.
Yes,
To
you
the
can,
store?
because there's some stores outside the city that still has no problem with that. Negative enforcement. It's a fit rule. That's why. It's all depends on where you at.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
My name's Elizabeth. Who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?
It's Annie. I was looking at some of your electric collars and just had some questions about which one might work for my dog. I have a Chihuahua pit bull mix. She's like 30 pounds and she's just like really annoying.
I would go with the Pat Pet. I mean, the sport dog is good. It's just really pricey. But for, 30 pounds, I would go with the Pat Pet. My dogs when they were younger, they wouldn't stop. So I tried out a few of them. The best one for me was the Pat Pet. It's Pat Pet P3020s. It's 1,000 feet remote dog training shock collar. Is that what you're looking for, right?
Like, how did you use it?
How did I use it? I just put it on them. It was just barking. If it wasn't barking, it was them running out the line. Like they would just run and run. If I didn't keep them in a surrounding area, like in a fenced area, oh man, they were gone. I used 2 of them. Pat Pet I use. It controls them up to 300 yards. So it's for noise, remote training. It has a vibration. So if you don't really want to shock them, you can just vibrate. It's 30 pounds. Not that big.
What is the shock? Is it like a certain amount of voltage?
It'll shock them. You can control it. This one is for 20 to 90 pounds, 6 months and up with a
So-
remote control.
Will it also do it if she barks?
Yes.
So it'll do
Yes.
both those?
I mean, my dog,
Yeah, see, I learned my lesson because it's the type of dog you have. My dog, it just, it didn't. There was a few of them that didn't work for me because their neck is like designed like a lot of pit bulls have the type of strong neck, their skin, and it doesn't affect them whatsoever. But my dogs, it was like whatever, nothing's on me. But this collar actually worked. This pat pad, I didn't have to use it that long.
Does
I
it
got the picture.
does it hurt them?
No, it's just a vibration. It just lets them know, It's like a prick of a finger. It's like if somebody just pricks your finger, but in a vibration mode,
So they don't
I don't think
really.
it hurts them.
So they don't.
They're not yelping and screaming in pain. No, they're
Do you
just
know?
stop.
Do you know? Is there a certain number of voltage it puts out?
This one is, let me see. There was a few of them. Let me take a look at this one. This other one here. Okay. Can't exceed 6 hours a day. Adjust the position of the receiver every 1 hour to avoid the skin of possibly being touched by the conductive screws, which I did. I used to do it all the time. I used to adjust it. Um, we suggest you to test the shock intensity first with your hand, so you can see what intensity that you want it to be. That's what I did, and it's just like a vibration. It's just letting them know, no, don't do that. I mean, she'll get the picture. This is probably the best one for her. This is what I use. My dog's got the picture. As soon as I bought it, I probably had to use it when I needed to, especially when I left the house. Because apparently, when I left the house, it was like no holds barred. They were just barking and, making the whole neighborhood know I'm here. It's like they were saying, somebody help, save me, So, like my girl, whenever I left the house, it was like screaming like damsel in distress, like just barking. She would bark and I'd put a camera in. She barked and barked and barked. She would stop barking.
But
She would stop
but
barking.
so then, like, just a little bit of a shock made the difference.
Yeah, when I got the collar, because before that I had the camera running, and she barked for like 6 hours straight. I was
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, who are you barking at?" I mean, it's not like, and then they would break all my blinds back then. Just looking out the window, a leaf flies by. Oh, alert, intruder,
Yeah.
bark time.
And all it took was the collar, and then it got better.
That's it. That's it. It was only the collar. I put the collar on. Honestly, I didn't have to use it long. Honestly, I would say it was only the times that I was concerned when I went to work. So I put the collar on them. I probably did it for 3 weeks and didn't need it anymore. They got the picture. The barking stopped. They only bark when they were supposed to. So yeah, this would work. I mean, it's really economical right now. It was $39.99. It's 50% off. So this one's $19.99. It's the Pat Pet. You just have to reposition every 2 hours, but don't
Why?
use it no more than 12 hours a day.
Okay. Is it okay for my daughter to do training with it? She's really interested.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Okay, so it's not like there's like an age requirement.
No, no, no. I mean, you could do it with your daughter. You both should be able to learn both should be able to learn how to do it.
Is there any danger having one of these like around kids?
No, just make sure what I do, and I tell everyone, how old is your daughter?
5?
Oh no, no, no. No, there's no danger to have it around her. When I had mine with my dogs, my daughter was 6 and my boy was 7.
Mhm.
So yeah, and I taught them. I taught them how to use it. You should just read the information. I mean, it's just the collar. You put the collar on, you have the remote, and you just have to teach them how to use it. The remote is like, let's say you're in the house and, barking and barking, and you want to, no, don't bark. And she continues to bark and she doesn't listen to your command, then yes, then you shock. That's what the remote is for.
Okay.
If she's not listening to you, that's how I treated my dog. There's another one. It's the Pet Diary, the T200 remote dog collar. Now this one's $49.99, but this one's really good. This
So
one's
good.
really, really good. Yeah, it's more effective. It's more effective. I didn't use this. My sisters did, and they used both. I gave them mine when I didn't need it anymore, and they said that this one was much better for them at least. And they had smaller dogs. They thought it was really effective, and they were able to train their dogs faster than me. Even one of my sisters had an older dog that she rescued and was just a little bit out of control. And she used the Pet Diary and it worked.
And do you know what the voltage is on those, or what the range is for like how low
This
or high it
one
goes?
is 1,000 feet. choose 3 types of simulation. So there's 3 voltages. It doesn't tell me the exact voltage. It just tells me that there's 3 types of stimulation: sound, vibration, static, multiple strengths. You get a mild correction. That's what my sisters were saying. They did just a mild correction.
So the dogs don't really mind
Remote
it.
transmitter.
It's not like punishment.
No, it's just training. This is training, and the training is easier. It's a little faster with this one. My sisters really like this one.
Then when you're done with them, you can put them on your husbands.
Right? I hear you. Well, I hope it works out. If you need anything, give us a call, okay?
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day. Bye.
Let's live with dogs in harmony. Good dog training is the key. You don't need to cause pain if you use your brain. Train your dog with love and science.
Hey everyone, it is Anamarie. I am doing a very short and sweet solo recording today. Mine and my advisor's Dr. Clive Wynn's study came out on a comparison of e-collars versus non-aversive methods came out. And it's been hard. I'll be totally honest. I anticipated that things would be hard when I went into this a year and a half ago, almost 2 years at this point. And it has confirmed that. But I do want to just address the situation in general. A lot of people on both sides have a lot of issues, and science is hard. And I know that sounds really reductionist to people who have been criticizing and working off the limitations that have been provided. And funding is hard. And having money and abundance amounts of free time when you're either a working trainer, or you're a working grad student, or you're a working professor, or you're any of the number of participants that had jobs. So there's only so many hours in a day and how many things that we can go through within a study, and nothing would ever hit ideal. And I would actively encourage people to, if you don't like the non-aversive and can pinpoint the limitations and where you would go differently, do it. I absolutely welcome a replication of this study. Now, of course, that comes with other issues in terms of what people are critiquing and that the dogs were exposed to the shock collars at all. I totally agree. But if you really want an answer to the questions that you have, we need more science. And maybe you go forward and you decide to replicate the study that gives you the ideal non-aversive paradigm. That's great. We need that, right? We need that in our world so that we can provide some guidance to people. And maybe it doesn't have a whole bunch of things, but it can provide some more insight for people to try again to replicate. So that's where I fall on this broad discussion. I think more science, again, needs to be done. And if that's just a bunch of non-aversive studies, that's great too. I would caution you from a personal perspective that I do think you'll also receive critiques because, again, not every study is perfect. Every study is going to have limitations, and those limitations do need to be open to critiques, which is fine. But there's a difference between critiques and not critiques. I'll leave it at that. And again, this is just one, and it's a small sample size, and which was indicated in the conclusions. But I felt it needed to be done, and again, it could have been done better. But I think for myself, I need to learn more. And I hope you guys do too. I hope you take the critical eyes that you had for the limitations of the study and continue to look at other studies and say, okay, I'm going to take this information from that study and that information from that study, and let's put it together and let's see if we can find some more information that we want going forward and provide better boundaries for the current free-for-all that is dog training and what people can do with dogs in their current lives. So I'll leave you guys with that. I do have upcoming things coming forward that I feel like probably will also be discussed. It's a great event, and hopefully I feel comfortable at that point just from a personal perspective of what I'm willing to accept and bring into my personal bandwidth, my emotional regulation moving forward. Annie and I are really excited to be doing this podcast together and discuss more and discuss dog training broadly and how ultimately dog training and our relationship with dogs relates to how we relate to each other and humans. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening. You can learn more about Anamarie at accesstobehaviorconsulting.com, and you can learn more about me at anniegrossman.com. You can also find my new book there. If you believe in good dog training and have ethics that align with mine, please go ahead and sign the Good Dog Training Pledge. You can find it at schoolforthedogs.com/pledge.